You're recognized for
Point of
your
information.
point of information before I recognize Senator Bulkis. Senator Francis Heiliger, make sure I can see you with your camera on.
Yeah, I'm right here. You can see me?
Uh, okay, now I am.
I'm here.
Yes, hi, how are
Okay.
you?
I I wanted to find out one thing. I remember when we heard this before, one of my major issues was us reaching out and inviting people when it came to the other side of the coin, dealing with people that advocate for the victims. But I don't see anyone here this time around. And that was one of my major adamant issues from hearing from that side. So what are we doing in regards to that to at least to allow for that side of the coin and voice to be heard? Thank you.
So, who are you suggesting?
Well, we have organizations that deal with victims advocacy, Family Resource Center. You have various organizations that deal with women victims. There are several in our community, and I actually thought some would have been here today, since this was another go around. When it came to this piece of legislation, because that was one of my major concerns when we discussed it earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. Your point well taken. Point of. We will move to Senator Francis Heiliger. Make sure that we can see you online, please. You're recognized for your 5 minutes.
I'm right here.
There you are.
Hi, good afternoon to I'm here. Good afternoon to my colleagues, to the people of the territory, to the testifiers. My first set of question, what is your thought process on the age being 65 when it references to geriatrics? Because I live in a society where the average employee retires at age 65. I know a lot of 60 and 65-year-olds that are very active, move around, very agile. So, what are your thought process on that specific age being chosen? To the director.
Director testimony. What my thought process? 65 is the new 40. you know, in this. So I don't really, again.
I think me and you thought alike when I saw the age, because I'm thinking like at 65, I know a lot of 65-year-olds that are still very active. They're moving around our society. They're still in the workforce. So how exactly does 65 be a number to trigger the geriatric conversation in this day and age? But that was one of my concerns. One of my major concerns has to do again with, I'm hearing a lot of talk about, it almost sounds like we're hearing a lot of compassion for the prisoners, but I'm still waiting to hear from the victims. That is a major, major problem for me. It was a problem for me when it came before this body before, and it is still a problem for me right now sitting here. I am very much concerned about that. I understand that somebody might be in jail for 30 years, as one of my colleagues was saying. They went in but has anybody asked the question why they went in there in the first place? We need to speak to the people that are directly impacted to say, well, listen, I'm okay with this. I need to hear that voice, because when all I'm hearing today has a lot to do with, people being terminally ill, people not getting older, that person that one of that individuals ended up murdering, they're not going to ever get older. They ain't going nowhere. They're gone. And I'm worried about not hearing from that side. And I understand that this might be easier for the parole board in regards from their aspect of assisting and getting people through the system, but there's a reason why somebody's sentenced to life. There's a reason why somebody got 30 years. There's a reason why somebody is locked away and still in prison at age 60, 65 years old. It's not the individuals that get these long terms because they might have been dealing with
2 minutes
soft drugs. This is not the case. I need to hear from the victims. That is my major concern. I want to ask the question. I saw the. What are your thoughts in regards? Because I keep hearing this one aspect about dealing with taking away people's powers and rights. Do you think that it's imperative that the rights still be vested in the director of the bureau to be able to put someone up for parole and not allow this to be another pathway to go directly to the board? Because that's what it's sounding like to me. But I want to make sure if I'm processing it clear based on how I'm reading this piece of legislation. What are your thoughts in that director testimony?
Director Testamark, I feel as currently, again, we rely on the information, the inmate data, meaning that how the person have rehabilitated, took advantage of the programs in which the agency have, how they are functioning now, really rely on the psychiatrist, the psychological evaluation, being that the psychologist or psychiatrist is able to evaluate that person, see their mental status, and in addition to that, the victim. So all those different things we take into consideration, and once the person is eligible for parole based on the law, then we recommend them to the parole board.
Okay. If we were to amend this document to say age 75, would you be more amenable to that age? I'm not saying overall, I'm just talking about the age aspect of it, because I did hear there were other concerns. The age aspect of it. What are your thoughts?
The age aspect of it.
Time.
I don't really think the fact of age, because I mean, you could be a young person and be terminally ill, you know? So
Well, this is for the geriatrics part, because the geriatrics part is 65.
Riel Faulkner, this is Assistant Director. Just looking at the table we provided, increasing the age to 75 means currently there's only one person on this list of 19 who is over the age of 75. So you would be reducing the number of inmates eligible to apply. So that's a policy decision.
Chair. Could I finish up?
You may conclude.
Mr. Chair, okay, thank you so much. So this is starting to sound more about trying to move people out the jail system as opposed to getting old and geriatrics being a part of their life. Because like I said, 65 is still young and kicking. So I don't see that as a geriatric age. That's just from my perspective. But I don't know if we're having a second round, and I don't want to go over my time. Thank you so much for your responses. Mr. Chair, I am really, really asking if we bring this again, we need to get some advocates for the victims in here so we could hear their perspective as to how this law could potentially impact them as well. Thank you so much.
Your concern is well taken and will be considered. Senator Francis Heiliger.
Hi, good afternoon. I just wanted to do a point of information, but since you're giving us a quick last lap, my concern again has to do with this particular hearing was our second bite at the apple. And I made it emphatically clear when we brought it before us and held it the first time. I needed to have advocates to be here so I could listen and listen to the other side. But we are at a second hearing, only hearing one side of the story. But then statements are being made that it could potentially now move on to rules. I am not a member of rules. And at least half of the members in this committee are members of rules. So you guys get a second bite. And I am not very happy at the fact that we need to hear from the other side. I don't like this. I feel very, very uncomfortable. I understand what the bill is trying to do. I applaud my colleague for bringing it. And the reason why it was not put down in the previous hearing, and we held it because we saw potential in the piece of legislation and we wanted it to be better. But one of the reasons why we said that it potentially could be better is if we heard from everyone. But here we are yet again with the same set of people, and we're not hearing from everyone. And I feel very uncomfortable today with this, and I needed to put that on the record. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Senator Bolkes.
Order.
Point of order. What rule has been violated, ma'am?
Well, point of order in regards to clarity. Did we just amend the bill?
Do you have?
And then we're supposed to vote to move the bill out the committee? Or we just amended the bill and just moved it one time?
Is this a point of order?
Because I thought it was two different things you were doing.
Senator, do you have a point of order or you have a point of clarification?
Sorry, point of clarification. I'm trying to clarify did we do an amendment to the bill and ask if we are going to go ahead and amend the bill to have the nature of the substitute? Then were we supposed to vote on whether or not to move the bill out of our committee into rules? Because I think we only did one vote, and I'm trying to make sure that we did two different things.
The bill was, the motion was made to consider the amendment in the nature of a substitute to bill number 35-0045 with no objections. Therefore, there was the second motion that came about that moved the amendment in the nature of a substitute. That's why I asked for your clarification whether you second or you objected. There was no objections. I hit the gavel.
But one moment. What I seconded was when our colleague Senator James said motion to be able to waive the reading.
Right.
That is what I seconded.
Right. With no objections. With no objections. And
so far, okay.
With no objections, and we proceeded. Senator Francis Heiliger, are you on with us still?
Yes, I am. I was waiting my turn. I'm here.
Wow, okay. You're recognized for your 5 minutes.
Hi, good afternoon once again to my colleagues, to the testifiers, to the people of the territory. My first set of questions have to do with the numbers when it comes to human services, when they spoke about the seniors in the list. How many of those specific seniors actually receive the messages? Because I looked when I was listening to the testimony and I was reading it, they had the seniors getting notifications. Do you guys verify how many of them actually receive them? Do you do any follow-up to make sure that they are getting the messages and notifications? Human Services.
Good afternoon, Yvette Henry, Department of Human Services. This past summer, we had our summer interns literally calling all 800 plus individuals, making sure that the numbers did apply to the names and also making sure that persons have not passed on, to which we would have then redacted their names and all else from the listing. So yes, we have done follow-up to make sure that they are getting the calls and the texts as they apply to the mass text from Vitima. Thank you.
Excellent. I am very happy to hear that. I want to ask a question now as it relates to public works. As you know, one of my biggest things is these storm drains, the drainage in our territory. What is your maintenance and continuous maintenance? Because you know these things are not cleared during, especially the hurricanes. It's like rivers flowing throughout the Virgin Islands. What's your plan there, and what have you been doing to make sure they're cleared?
Good afternoon, Derek Gabriel, Commissioner for the Department of Public Works. So as I mentioned in my testimony, Senator, we do have 2 newly acquired vacuum trucks. and we've been using those primarily in the historic districts. So in St. Thomas, just a few weeks ago, we worked with our crew as well as waste management to clear out that major that area that's always clogged in the area of the Department of Labor's headquarters. And in St. Croix, we tried to do some preemptive clearing and cleaning out, particularly in the Frederickstead town. We do use not only our vacuum trucks, but also shovels by hand, any means that we can. And then, as I said, we do have a few projects that we're hoping to kick off in 24 to address our stormwater drainage in both districts.
As it relates to the police department, I know one of the things that, and this is also with the Adjutant General's office, when you spoke specifically as it relates to the numbers of individuals that are between the islands, I think when the Adjutant General spoke with his testimony, he spoke about them being equally divided between the District of St. Thomas and St. Croix. I want to know, how do you guys manage that when it comes with hurricanes, and specifically the island of St. John? When you make that division, does some of those individuals go over to St. John, or are you just talking about just St. Thomas? To explain that for myself and the public.
Yes, thank you for that question, Senator John Nasselbecker, National Guard. Also, we do have the personnel that are split in Task Force Alpha, Task Force Bravo, and Task Force Blade. Task Force Alpha is actually responsible for St. Croix. Task Force Bravo is responsible for St. Thomas, St. John, and Water Island. Task Force Blade is a requirement to support the theater opening of both airports, St. Thomas and St. Croix. When the pending storm comes, we actually push personnel to St. John to ride out the storm with the VI Fire and Emergency Services. They hunker down, and based on assessment of what's needed, we increase or decrease the amount of personnel. We only have 4 personnel who live on St. John that are in the National Guards. So, of course, they stay there. Additionally, if the storm is beyond our capacity, as soon as the ports open back up, we have over 300 MPs and 300 engineers that will come from our EMAC partners into the territory, which would be federated against the support requirements as deemed by the emergency. Over.
Excellent. And as it relates to the police department, how do you guys deal with shifting your staff between the districts?
In regards to that, ma'am, once the storm has passed and assessments are being made, we will utilize our Marine Unit services to move personnel to and from the districts.
Okay, thank you. Director Joshua, when it comes to dealing, as you know, after hurricanes, people are trying to reach out for help. What is your contingency plan when it comes to getting access to the 911 system? I know sometimes during hurricanes, the electricity goes down. I know you guys have talked about generators. Please expound a little bit on that as to how people can reach out after hurricanes, especially those that might be in emergency situations or even during the storm.
This is Director Josh, and thank you, Senator Heiliger. You know, the 911 PSTAPs, both in St. Thomas and St. Croix, are considered critical infrastructure. The actual systems themselves have backup generators, are maintained and checked often. The communications we use, part of it is the civilian side or commercial side with phones that we'd call in from the major carriers, and then the dispatching side is through BIT and the tower, so they maintain those all very much so. Also, if we have any systems that go down, we can work with our federal partners through FEMA identity to bring information in or bring technology in to fix anything that would be down, but that be one-dimensional and critical capacities for us. And again, if we do have one 911 go down in St. Croix, we have an alternate site set up, which would be down in Christiansted. They would have to go to in order to stand up operations. We did have it go down in 17, so that's one of the concerns for us. And on St. Thomas, we can go back between St. Thomas and St. Croix as far as the 911s, but that definitely is one of the critical aspects to having individuals call 911. Now, again, when storms come through, there'll be a certain point in time. We talk about tropical storm force winds. No, we're not going to put 911 folks out. We're going to have them stay. You can call, we get information, but we'll not put individuals in harm's way until after the storm passes.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think I just heard them say time. I would like to say that I do applaud you guys for your hard work that you do, as well as dealing with our preparation for, storms and events that happen in the territory. But again, the only thing I say, continue to make sure that the work that you put forward definitely has to deal with prevention when it comes to, dealing with disasters and educating the people as to how to deal with them, as well as when they come, being on your P's and Q's to make sure our people are protected. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time.
Thank you, you're recognized. I'm sorry, you're recognized.
It's okay. Good afternoon. My burning question is to Public Works Department. I know a lot of times we're dealing with a lot of road repairs, and when hurricanes come, they do a lot of damage to the roads. Do you have a strategic plan on identifying roads that are either heavily trafficked that you might have to make sure is, prepared, as you might have to deal with a lot of evacuations, and filling out potholes, making sure the surfaces are good in anticipation of a hurricane coming in, because those roads might be widely trafficked after a hurricane, especially as evacuation routes. How do you handle that? Thank you.
Yes, so included with our testimony, we do have maps for the three islands, identify our primary routes, our secondary routes, and then our tertiary routes. So the primary routes are the areas like that lead to our ports, our critical facilities. Those are the ones that we first do our pre-damage assessment and then our post-damage assessment. Those are also the priorities that we do our route clearance as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question.
That's it? You had any more? That's it?
You said we could only do one, so I was sticking to the rules.
I didn't tell you one. Go
It's a burning question.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm good. It's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner.